Today, officially, there are no more refugee camps, or there are very few refugees in Vietnam. In practice, there is still probably 2, 3, 4 million. No one knows exactly how many.
In the area around Quang Tri, 8 kilometers from the North Vietnamese border, we found the Cam Lo and Dam Ha refugee camps. They're not the best, and they're not the worst. There are dozens of such camps in which hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese wait. They've been waiting for years, waiting for the time when they can go back to their own piece of land, to their own village, to the land of their ancestors. Here in the camps, they get scanty rations and exist on meager incomes, or on no income at all. Medical and welfare supplies are minute. Education for the children is practically non-existent.
Well, the people here are from a radius of about 5 to 6 kilometers around here. Some lived in the area of the DMZ itself, some in areas adjacent to it, which are now considered insecure. Some lived further to the sea, some lived further west, and they were brought here to this central location.
And how many refugees are living in camps like this, in these surroundings?
About 18,000 in this particular camp. Sometimes the figures from different people vary from 16,000 to 18,000.
And in the other camp?
The other camp is about 15,000 to the west in Cam Lo.
It's more than 30,000.
Right.
Are they considered to be refugees?
No, they aren't. Not anymore. I have seen recent refugee figures from the province here, and the province states that there are no refugees in Quang Tri.
And that indicates what for those people? No help any longer?
That indicates probably that all assistance payments have stopped, and that they've been termed returned to normalcy, or some kind of term like this. Probably this would be officially termed a resettlement village rather than a refugee camp.
Seems to be a rather desperate situation, isn't it?
Well, it's desperate because these are farm people. They come from farm backgrounds. They're all farmers, and you can see each little house has one little tiny plot of land, and this isn't really farming as they knew it. And you know, there's no paddy here, and they're paddy farmers, rice farmers.
Any idea what's going to happen to them in the future, when the war is over, probably?
I keep asking them in the province about this, and there doesn't seem to be much hope, because even if the war is over, this will always be an area of, near the DMZ, will always be an area of questionable security, you know. And there's talk that some will be taken back to their homes, but it's pretty generally felt that for an indefinite time in the future that people will be here.
Mines and booby traps threaten the safety of the civilian population quite as much as the activities of the snipers and the bombers. The Quakers who built this rehabilitation center in Quang Ngai made a survey of the causes of injuries to their patients. They found that 17 out of 100 of the injuries were caused by the National Liberation Front. 11 out of 100 were caused by the Vietnamese army, and 37 out of 100 by American weapons and explosives. The cause of the remaining 35% was not clear. 733 artificial limbs were made and fitted here in 1969. Treatment is free, but neither personnel nor money are available for aftercare or help in the psychological rehabilitation of the victims. The former capital of the country, Hue, is a witness to the glorious past of Vietnam. This deserted square was a holy place, where there was ceremonial dancing before the emperor. The centuries-old citadel now consists mainly of deserted ruins. The palaces and monuments were destroyed during the Tet Offensive of 1968. For a month, Hue was the center of heavy fighting. In the destroyed pagodas and temples and in the battered city walls, rusting shrapnel can be seen. Still, Trum Tu Tien sings about the beauty of this country. Vietnam the beautiful.
Con quốc Việt Nam cả bài sông núi hờn căm. Từ khi quốc ca điều tàng, thương người ở tận biên ngang. Này người đi con quốc kêu vào Hà Nam.
But there is no more public transport, as all the public services have been reduced beneath an absolute minimum. Vietnam the beautiful, where the sugar cane is cut, not to eat, but for security reasons, where at least 200,000 acres of farmland have been killed with chemicals and will be infertile for years to come. Vietnam the Beautiful, where the number of bomb craters is estimated at 5 or 6 million, most of them in agricultural areas. In the monsoon, the craters fill with water and become breeding places for malarial mosquitoes, with all the attendant results. And since it was announced that there would be some withdrawal of American troops in 1971, bombings have increased. Vietnam the Beautiful, where the American protectors have given the landscape that special quality with their garbage dumps, where the population looks for cans and cardboard to patch up their huts. In Hoc Mon, close to Saigon, they dump their trash on a Buddhist cemetery, a sample of Western civilization, of which the Vietnamese have received so many.
Mười năm nữa 20 tròn, đời bão nổi mưa trôi. Ơi người đi nên quốc kêu vời vợi tâm hồn. Ơi chàng chiến sĩ con quốc ngày khôn bên trời dòng tố 10 phương vào đêm phòng the gối trắng đưa người.
Vietnam the Beautiful, where trees are bare, thanks to a highly developed defoliation technique and the exhaust fumes of passing convoys.
Đời con quốc lệ quốc kêu vào hạ sang thu.
Vietnam the Beautiful, which once exported large quantities of rubber, an important part of the economy. But because the leaves of the rubber trees offer cover to the enemy, they've been cut down. An ingenious tactical maneuver. What is left is heavily guarded.
The economy in Vietnam is disastrous. The cost of living increased from May 1969 to May 1970 is about 50%. And all the whole economy is supported by foreign funds through USAID, which provide funds for Vietnam to import goods and foods. Before the war, Vietnam was the second exporter in the world of rice, and I think also the second exporter of rubber. But now Vietnam is importing rice. The second problem is the imbalance between the import and the export in Vietnam. Last 1968, we have only the figures for this year. Vietnam export 11.9 million of US dollars, and we import 697 millions US dollars. So you can see that we have to fulfill this gap with foreign funds. And that creates problems for Vietnam. And concerning the national expenditures, you can see that most of the expenditures are given to the national defense. So if we take the percentage of the expenditures given to national defense and to the education or to the social welfare, the gap is very great. I think that the national defense takes around 70% of the national expenditures. And in 1968, the part given to the social welfare of the country is only 0.53% of the national budget of the country. And it is not so good for the country.
Vietnam is now supported by money from abroad, mostly from the United States. From these funds, a television network has been installed, but which Vietnam couldn't afford and for which it didn't even ask. In the TV studios at Saigon, we filmed the shooting of a Kai Luang play, a play related to Chinese opera, and more or less comparable to our musicals in the West.
Kẻ đó sẽ bay đầu. Dạ thưa lão tiền bối, cổ Tây Phong này chưa hiểu được thâm ý của lão tiền bối. Người muốn hiểu điều gì? Cho nên ta muốn trình thủ tuyệt học của ta cho ngươi để một mai ta thất thủ. Dương đường của kẻ đại thù, thì nhờ giải quyết các việc còn lại thay ta, để dưới lòng đất sâu ta đưa tình cảm người. Hai việc ấy là chi xin ngài chỉ dạy. Cổ Tây Phong này quyết sẽ lo thọ. Điều thân nhất là đánh nét văn sang, khiến thân tình sao thân cài, là nói ta đã chịu. Bây giờ ta hỏi các nàng là ai? Các nàng có biết mang tội lớn như ta chưa?
On the evening that the play was being transmitted, we looked in on 15 houses with a TV aerial. 13 were tuned to the US Army program. Only 2 sets were tuned to the Kai Luang play. But nobody was watching.
A most appropriate comment, Mr. West.
Come on, G.I. You can spare just a few piastres.
The fishing town Vung Tau on the coast of the South China Sea is now a rest and recreation center for Australian, American and Thai troops. Hundreds of attractive girls earn tidy sums from the recreation of the tired warriors. These girls can earn more than $400 US a month. A police officer here earns about $50. An American soldier in Vietnam can apply for a cohabitation permit. which gives him the right to live together with a Vietnamese girl. The girls are attracted to the idea because it pays well, and often because they have to support whole families. With the US dollar worth about 3 times its exchange value on the black market, a soldier can have a girl entirely for himself for about $140 a month. The girl will probably be left behind when the GI goes home. Should there be any children of mixed blood from the Union, they will be looked down on by the population. The girl's chances of eventually finding a Vietnamese husband are virtually nil.
Huh? I think we'd better do. We want to be in Saigon around 5.
Nearly all the girls from the amusement center have VD, but there are no medical facilities for curing it. Saigon has the only clinic for victims of this disease. Women, however, hardly show themselves there. One doesn't do that kind of thing. There are about 500,000 girls working as bar girls and prostitutes in Vietnam.
And they missed. You know, they put a couple of long here and killed a couple of people.
Don't let that mislead you, because we had...
well, we're on the peninsula down here, you know,
not
it's hard to get
to us.
last 2 weeks.
Some of them coming. One of them got killed, one of them got injured, the other one got away without anything.
Yeah, they just did it. Have they ever shown? I'm not trying to say anything, but about 2 weeks ago. Done what's been done by Westerners.
In Vietnam, there have been several different efforts. The biggest one, of course, being the U.S. economic aid program, where that $500 or $600 million have been spent each year. I think there have been some very good things that have been done, you know, in an economic sense for Vietnam. Better varieties of crops have been brought in. There have been some good roads that have been built. I think also I would comment that Vietnamese are very open to improvement and to change. But I think in general, the Western aid to Vietnam has, I believe, been counterproductive. It's created some very, very serious problems for the Vietnamese. First of all, aid that has been brought here by foreigners has widened the gap between the rich and the poor. The second complaint is that they feel that it has created a mendicant society, a handout, a give-me kind of society, that we've given so much bulgur wheat and cooking oil and flour and this sort of thing, that particularly in the refugee camps, we've created an atmosphere of wait and we'll get the food kind of thing, and we'll give you
kind
the food.
Kind of indolency.
Right. It usually very often much of this food gets siphoned off on the way. Again, this problem of widening the gap between the rich and the poor. But it has destroyed initiative. Another problem is that much of the aid has not been very appropriate. Many people feel that television is not very appropriate for Vietnam, and even more important, that it's given Vietnam the kind of thing that it can't afford when the war is over. We have, say, in the high schools, we encourage home economics programs, and we put American stoves and to teach young Vietnamese girls how to cook in a kind of stove that they will never see, you know, in their own homes for the rest of their lives. We give complicated equipment which isn't used because people don't have electricity.
That brings me rather easily to the question, what should be done?
Yeah. One other thing, if I could add, just one more thing, which I think is very important, and that is that I think that very often our aid is given and seen as a kind of makeshift patchwork kind of assistance. That is that
out of a feeling of guilt.
It's a way to ease our conscience. You know, we bomb a village or we bomb an area, but then we give the people food so we feel better. A man loses his leg, but we can put the leg back on, you know, a wooden leg on, better than anybody else. You know, we've built good hospitals to put these legs back on. So this kind of thing that eases our conscience about a great deal of this. We've defoliated much of Vietnam, yet we bring in more fertilizer, better varieties of crops, so that the aid has tended, I think, to ease our conscience and so on. So while again, I think it's important, I don't think any of us should allow it to ease our conscience.
Foreigners who have come to Vietnam in the past have shown little understanding of this country and her people with an ancient culture and with their own language and traditions. The Vietnamese are civilized, they are friendly, and they're extremely hospitable. Buddhism demands that. But they've begun to suspect the foreigners who've invaded their country. There is increasing suspicion of all who said they'd come to help, and in doing so created the present desperate situation. More than half the adults cannot read or write. What can they be expected to know of communism or imperialism? The thing they want more than anything else is peace and quiet, to have a small piece of land in the village in which they grew up and in which they felt protected and supported by their relatives. But now they go through life burdened by the realization that they are the victims of a war which they did not ask for. The Vietnamese have become a race of invalids and sick. Their bodies have been maimed and their children have been murdered by exploding mines and napalm bombs. 1 million children in North and South Vietnam have lost their parents in the last 15 years. Many Vietnamese, hoping that they might liberate themselves from the horrors of war, have joined the National Liberation Front. The West, in turn, has interpreted this movement as a criminal organization, whose sole purpose is the extermination of American soldiers. For those of us in the West, Vietnam is a chaotic and repulsive military battle area. Destruction and death dominate so strongly that it is hard to imagine that the people of this country still believe they can build something from such a disaster. Vietnam can still appear to be a beautiful and fertile country, but appearances are deceptive. As farmers are forced to leave their land, the food situation starts to become precarious. Everywhere there are threats of contagious diseases, especially tuberculosis and dysentery. In spite of the millions of dollars of aid which the West pours into the country, little can be done for there are few doctors or efficient medical facilities available. Of the 17 million South Vietnamese, 1 million men have been drafted. After the war is finished, they will be unemployed. And with them will be the hundreds of thousands who now have jobs in the administration and supply functions of the foreign armies. Add to that the 500,000 bar girls and prostitutes. In the Vietnamese highlands live the Montagnards. They are a mountain people. Some of the languages they speak haven't even been recorded. Superficially, they differ from the real Vietnamese. The war has driven them from their villages. The government in Saigon was afraid that they might start a political opposition and found it safer to keep an eye on them. Montagnards are illiterate, earning their living by hunting and fishing. In the government villages into which they've been brought, these sources of food no longer exist. At the moment, the Montagnards are displaced persons in every sense of the word. No one knows what will happen to them when the war is over. About 500,000 of them have already been waiting for years to return to their villages.
Chưa âm đẳng. Chưa âm đẳng nhỉ? Cái bơi bà. Giúp đỡ cha chụp bơi. Ông con cái tục là nó con một nè cho con đi. Ôi nhớ mà lại.
Vietnam Christian Service, a help-giving organization of the American churches, built a school for the children in Zilin. In addition, women can have sewing lessons here. Hygienic principles are taught during the lessons by a Montagnard volunteer who knows the people well and who speaks their particular language. But more important, the Buddhists are developing a rebuilding program. The School of Youth for Social Service moves mountains. The Honorable Thich Ton Van explains.
Cái phương pháp của chúng tôi hiện bây giờ là muốn về làng và cùng với người dân làng để làm một cái cuộc cách mạng xã hội. Và chúng tôi quan niệm rằng cuộc cách mạng xã hội đó phải được xây dựng từ nông thôn, bởi vì nông thôn Việt Nam chúng tôi có thể nói chiếm đến 90% dân số. Nếu có một cái cuộc cải tạo nào mà không nhằm đến nông thôn ấy, thì đó là một cái sự khiếm khuyết đáng kể. Và cái chương trình của chúng tôi gồm có là hiện tại thì có 2 chương trình. Một là chương trình về các cái làng xây dựng từ cơ sở hạ tầng, tức là làng hoa tiêu hay là làng tự nguyện. Ngoài ra có những cái công tác mà nó để nhằm đáp ứng với những cái nhu cầu có tính cách cấp bách, như để đáp ứng với cái nhu cầu chiến tranh đó, thì chúng tôi có những cái công tác cứu trợ. Và hiện bây giờ chúng tôi có tất cả là 8 đoàn công tác trên toàn quốc, 4 đoàn ở ngoài Quảng Trị và 4 đoàn tại miền Nam. Ngoài ra lại có 2 đoàn y tế lưu động, 1 đoàn cũng tại Quảng Trị và 1 đoàn tại miền Nam.
Saigon, the present capital of South Vietnam, is one of the most densely populated cities of the world. The population has risen in the last 12 years to 2.5 million. The increase has been caused largely by farmers from the Mekong Delta and many Catholics from North Vietnam seeking safety and protection in the city. They built shacks wherever they could find space, in the swamps, over the tributaries, even on the graves of a Catholic cemetery. The medical, social, and hygienic situation is deplorable. A number of students and intellectuals in Saigon have started a rebuilding movement. They urge the population to build decent houses on a kind of cooperative basis. It's small in scale, but ideal for the Vietnamese who like to live and work in small groups. The movement helps with the planning and financing of the construction of houses like these. The inhabitants of the neighborhood receive building materials and work on the houses together. They've even succeeded in creating some sources of income. Poultry raising is one of them. Obviously, they can use help to broaden their activities, but the first requirement is peace in the land. Peace. That's a word which you encounter again and again wherever you go in Vietnam today.
Chuông mai đưa vào chuông này. Leo gì đây hả? Đi là con xuống đi.
On this artificial island in the Mekong River live the strangely named coconut monks. No less strange is their form of worship with its mixture of Buddhism and Christianity. This sect has a loathing of any kind of violence. They are suspected both by the Liberation Front and the government in Saigon. On the day on which we visited them on their island, they appeared to be heading for real difficulties. This was because a number of draft dodgers had been allowed to conceal themselves between the real monks. The Vietnamese authorities were threatening to raid the island. Our sampan was followed for quite a while by a police boat, but we were allowed to go undisturbed, though all the passages to the island were officially blocked. On the island, the monks had dozens of cans of gasoline ready. They threatened to let the whole island with its inhabitants go up in flames the moment that army or police set foot on land. A few days after our departure, the army did raid the island, and 150 people were arrested. The raid went so quickly that the plans of the monks to burn themselves could not be carried out.
There are many good Vietnamese, many able Vietnamese. There are many good Vietnamese organizations. And the most important thing is for us to channel resources into these organizations rather than competing with the organizations. I think that to help some of the Vietnamese local organizations in a back to the farm movement, the Vietnamese can encourage and bring about a back to the farm movement, I think, much more effectively than we can. They speak Vietnamese better than any foreigner can, of course, but more important, they understand the customs of the local people. They will be trusted by the local people. And I think it's very important that the Vietnamese, in terms of developing their own pride, can begin to do some of these things. And we can help, I think, a great deal in terms of the resources that are needed and so on. I think that Vietnamese recognize the need for help when the war is over. They will want the help when the war is over. I hope that we have the humility to give the kind of help that's really needed. I think we often like to do it ourselves. You know, we like to, in the television, we like to see another German or American or Englishman, holding a baby in an orphanage or something like this. Well, it looks good on television, but in terms of development in Vietnam, it's much more important to have these things done by the Vietnamese who understand all of the complicated problems, who've got to develop, their own country, and are very able to do this given some help.
How badly needs Vietnam peace? They are bad off now. Won't they be worse off when it's peace?
Well, I think peace will, have to come. I think Vietnam will be much better off with peace. I think that talk of to the Vietnamese that talk of reconstruction, talk of development and all of this is pretty irrelevant until you do have peace. You can't develop a country when the defoliation is going on, when the areas are being bombed. And I think that Vietnamese are anxious for peace, reconciliation to begin. It's going to be a very difficult thing for Vietnam, but I think it's the kind of thing they would like to begin on right now. And without question, to the Vietnamese, peace is the most important thing.
This is the hospital of Kai Bay, a village in the Mekong Delta. A hospital with no doctors. There is a nurse who has promoted a few youths from the village to act as assistants. For the total population of 17 million Vietnamese, 150 doctors are available. 500 doctors work for the Vietnamese army, and approximately 2,000 work in Europe and America. Many have defected to avoid the draft. Others have gone to the West because they could better exercise their profession in quieter working circumstances and with modern equipment. And there are those who have gone to work in France or Switzerland simply to have a more luxurious life. This hospital was shot to rubble in September 1969, but the damage is still not repaired. There is X-ray equipment here, given by the US Army, but there is hardly any electricity to work it. And if there were, there is no one to operate the apparatus. The nurse works day and night, even performing minor operations. Everybody in South Vietnam prays for peace, although a whole generation has grown up not knowing what the word means. The peace about which their government speaks, the peace which President Nixon announces, has up till now meant nothing to them but heavier bombings, more sickness, more corruption. After 30 years of war, there is not much in Vietnam that doesn't bear the scars of fighting and destruction. And when the guns stop firing, if the guns stop firing, it will take a long time for Vietnam's people to recover from the deep wounds this war has inflicted on them. They're going to need considerable help for a long time to come in order that they themselves may rebuild their own country.